"Let me make this perfectly clear," the stepmother announced at the will reading, her voice sharp enough to cut the air. "These two get nothing. Their father told me everything goes to me." Across the polished conference table, the twins Ethan and Lila Carter sat silently, holding hands beneath the surface. They didn't flinch. They didn't argue. They had learned long ago that arguing never helped. The lawyer, Mr. Harrington, slowly opened a sealed envelope. The room felt too quiet, the kind of quiet that presses on your ears. Outside the tall windows of the Los Angeles law office, the city buzzed, but in this room time seemed to freeze. "Actually, Mrs. Caldwell," Mr. Harrington said, lifting his gaze, "there's a second will." A ripple of tension moved across the room. Mrs. Caldwell's confident smile twitched, then faltered slightly. "What?" she demanded. "That's impossible. Your husband updated his will 1 week before he passed," the lawyer continued. "This document supersedes all previous versions." Ethan leaned forward, heart thudding. Lila stopped breathing for a moment. Mr. Harrington read the next line slowly, letting each word land like a weight on the table. "The Carter twins will receive 90% of the estate." Mrs. Caldwell's face drained of color. "What did you just say?" "You," the lawyer continued calmly, "receive the family home. But only under one condition." He paused, glancing at the twins as if bracing them for impact. "You must treat Ethan and Lila with kindness, dignity, and respect. Any violation results in immediate forfeiture." A bead of sweat slid down Mrs. Caldwell's temple. "And based on a recording captured less than 5 minutes ago, that condition has already been broken." The twins exchanged a stunned look. Mrs. Caldwell's hands trembled. But before the truth unraveled completely, before the shock exploded into chaos, "Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now subscribe, because this story is only beginning." "Stay quiet, she might still be asleep," Ethan whispered outside Lila's bedroom door. It was 5:58 a.m. in their dim Santa Monica home, the hallway chilled by the marine air drifting in from the coast. Lila cracked her door open carefully, making sure it didn't squeak. She nodded, and the twins began their silent descent. They stepped only on the edges of each wooden stair. Years of practice had taught them which ones groaned loud enough to wake Marjorie Caldwell, their stepmother. Waking her meant trouble. Waking her meant surviving another storm. In the kitchen, Ethan pocketed 2 granola bars. Lila filled water bottles without turning on a single light. They moved as if the house itself were a sleeping creature they dared not disturb. At the front door, Ethan twisted the lock slowly, and Lila pulled the door open inch by cautious inch. A blast of cool California morning air hit their faces. "Made it?" Lila whispered. "Another day," Ethan answered. They hurried down the quiet Santa Monica street, passing manicured lawns and houses too perfect for the misery they hid inside their own. They shared a single pair of earbuds as they walked toward the metro station. No words, just silent understanding. They had repeated this escape every school day for 5 years. On the train, Lila clutched the silver necklace that belonged to their mother, Amelia Carter, who died when they were 10. Lila touched it whenever fear rose in her chest, and lately she touched it often. At school, Ethan sat in English class where his teacher handed him an essay with a bright red A+. "You're gifted," she wrote. He folded it away. He didn't talk about his dreams, not when home felt like a cage. During lunch, Lila hid in the library reading worn poetry pages, avoiding friends, avoiding questions. They lived 2 lives. One at school where they were almost normal, and one at home where silence was survival. After school, Ethan changed into his track uniform in the boys' locker room at Santa Monica High. Running was the only time his mind felt quiet. Coach's whistle blew, and Ethan launched into his long-distance laps, pushing himself harder than usual. Every breath burned, every stride a release from the tension waiting back home. Across the city, Lila rode the bus to a community center in South LA, helping younger kids with homework. She guided a 10-year-old through fractions, her patience softening the fear she carried daily. "You're really good at this," the girl said. It was the only moment Lila genuinely smiled that day. At 6:45 p.m., the twins met at the downtown LA Public Library, their usual quiet refuge. They studied in silence for 2 hours, dreading the same thing, going home. When they finally walked back into the house, the smell of dinner filled the air. Marjorie's voice floated from the kitchen, warm and sugary, the voice she used only when their father was home. "There you are," she said brightly when they entered the dining room. Their father, Daniel Carter, sat at the table looking exhausted, his tie loosened. "I made chicken and rice," Marjorie chirped, placing food in front of them as if she cared. The twins ate quietly. Daniel asked about school. Marjorie smiled too much, said too little. Ethan noticed the way Daniel rubbed his forehead, the sign he was overwhelmed. After dinner, Daniel hugged them both. Longer than usual. "I love you," he said softly. "You know that, right?" "We know, Dad," Lila whispered. He went to his home office, closing the door behind him. Minutes later, the peace shattered. Raised voices erupted from the master bedroom at the end of the hall. Daniel's, angry, sharp, followed by Marjorie's shrill retaliation. The twins froze in their bedroom doorways. Their father never yelled. The argument grew louder, rawer, until suddenly, it stopped. Silence. The kind of silence that hinted something had shifted, something big, something dangerous. Ethan and Lila lay awake for hours, listening to the quiet and wondering what would happen next. Ethan woke before his alarm. The Santa Monica house felt heavier than usual, too still. Normally, by 6:30 a.m., Marjorie was already clattering around the kitchen, slamming drawers, making her presence impossible to ignore. But today, nothing. He opened his bedroom door and found Lila already in the hallway, dressed for school, eyes tired and red. "Did you hear anything after the argument?" she whispered. "No, it just went quiet," Ethan said. "Dad left early. I heard the garage at 5. Something in Lila's expression tightened. "Something feels wrong." Ethan didn't disagree. They slipped out of the house as usual, avoiding any encounter with Marjorie. On the train to school, Lila clutched their mother's necklace almost constantly. Ethan tried to reassure her, but even he felt a cold, sinking weight in his stomach. At school, Ethan stared blankly at calculus notes. Lila reread the same poem 3 times, unable to focus. She texted him, "I can't shake this feeling." He replied, "He's fine. Just stressed." But Ethan didn't believe his own words. At 2 p.m. during Ethan's calculus class, a knock sounded at the door. Mrs. Cole, the principal's secretary, whispered something to the teacher. "Ethan, you need to come with us," the teacher said softly. The room went silent. In the hallway, Ethan saw Lila waiting. She was crying. "What's going on?" Ethan asked, panic rising. "I don't know," Lila sobbed. "They just pulled me out of class." They were led into the principal's office. Principal Davis sat behind her desk, her expression full of sorrow. Beside her stood Mr. Harrington, their father's lawyer. "Please sit," he said gently. Ethan and Lila sat, gripping each other's hands. "There's no easy way to say this," Mr. Harrington began. "Your father suffered a massive heart attack during a meeting downtown this morning." Lila gasped, choking on a cry. "He didn't survive." The world blurred. Ethan felt the floor tilt. Their father, gone? Just hours ago alive? Nothing made sense. And in that moment, as grief crashed over them, they had no idea. This tragedy was only the beginning. When Ethan and Lila returned to the Santa Monica house with Mr. Harrington, Marjorie was already performing. She sat on the couch in a perfectly tailored black dress, no mascara smudged, no tears shed. She was on the phone discussing casket options when she spotted the twins. "Oh, you're home," she said with a sigh that sounded rehearsed. She hugged them stiffly, too long, too cold, glancing at Mr. Harrington to ensure the gesture was witnessed. But the moment the lawyer left, the house went silent. Not grieving silence, dangerous silence. "I have calls to make. Don't disturb me," Marjorie snapped before disappearing upstairs. Ethan and Lila sat together in the quiet living room, feeling the crushing truth settle over them. He was gone. Their protector. Their father. And now they were trapped with her. The following days blurred painfully. Neither twin ate much. They drifted through the house like ghosts. At night, Lila sobbed in her sleep. Ethan stayed awake listening, helpless. 4 days later, the morning of the funeral, Ethan struggled with his tie until Lila entered his room and tied it for him. Her hands trembled. "You look like Dad," she whispered, voice shattering. Marjorie swept past the doorway in a glamorous black dress, diamonds glittering. She didn't glance at them. She looked like she was headed to an award show, not her husband's funeral. After the service, mourners filled the house. Marjorie floated around the guests with a tragic smile, collecting sympathy like currency. But the moment no one was watching, she grabbed Lila's arm and hissed, "Stop crying so much. You're embarrassing me." That night, after everyone left, the twins cleaned the entire house while Marjorie retreated upstairs without a word. By morning, her cruelty sharpened. She woke them by pounding on their doors. "This house is filthy. Get up. You'll do every chore. My house, my rules." Her mask had fallen completely. And Ethan and Lila realized something terrifying. With their father gone, Marjorie no longer had any reason to pretend. Over the next few days, Marjorie no longer bothered to hide her cruelty. With Daniel gone, her voice sharpened like broken glass. She stormed through the Santa Monica house, flinging open doors, criticizing everything the twins did, and inventing new chores just to keep them exhausted. One afternoon, Lila returned from school and instantly froze. Her dresser drawers were slightly open. Her closet door was ajar. Something was off. Then she saw it, the empty space on her dresser where her mother's silver-framed photo had always sat. The photo was gone. Her heartbeat spiked. She ran downstairs and found Marjorie lounging on the couch watching daytime TV. "Where's my mom's picture?" Lila demanded. Marjorie didn't even look away from the screen. "What are you talking about?" "You took it," Lila said louder this time. Marjorie slowly stood, eyes narrowing. "Are you calling me a liar?" "It was there this morning," Lila whispered, voice cracking. "Oh please," Marjorie scoffed, stepping closer. "Your precious mother wasn't special. She died. Move on." Lila's hand moved before she could think. She slapped Marjorie across the face. The sound echoed through the room. For a moment, everything froze. Marjorie touched her cheek, then smiled. A terrifying smile. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life," she whispered. "When the will is read and I inherit everything, you and your brother will be out on the street." Ethan appeared in the doorway, breathless. He saw Lila crying in Marjorie's red cheek. "What happened?" he asked. "Your sister assaulted me," Marjorie said, voice dripping with venom. "But it doesn't matter. Soon this house, this life, will all be mine. And you two nobodies will have nothing." That night, as Marjorie called the lawyer to schedule the will reading, Ethan and Lila sat together in his room, whispering in the dark. "What are we going to do?" Lila asked. "We survive," Ethan said. "We save money. Pack quietly. Prepare to leave the moment she kicks us out." For the first time, the twins truly believed their lives were about to collapse. The morning of the will reading felt like a funeral all over again. Ethan and Lila dressed quietly in black, neither speaking much. Marjorie, however, looked radiant, an expensive new dress, fresh salon curls, gold jewelry that practically shouted wealthy widow. She smiled at her reflection, a smile meant for victory. The train ride into downtown Los Angeles was silent. Marjorie scrolled on her phone, likely imagining how she'd spend the entire Carter estate once the twins were gone. At 9:30 a.m., they stepped into the tall glass building where Harrington and Associates was located. The receptionist guided them to a large conference room overlooking the city. Ethan and Lila sat together. Marjorie sat across from them, her purse positioned like a trophy. "I hope you two are prepared," she murmured, lips curling. Before they could respond, Mr. Harrington entered. He gave the twins a gentle nod, then placed a thick manila envelope on the table. "Before we begin," Marjorie stood abruptly, her chair screeching. "I want it on record that these two have been ungrateful, disrespectful, and cruel to me. They were a burden to Daniel. They deserve nothing." Ethan felt Lila's fingers tighten around his. Marjorie continued, voice rising. "They're not real Carters. They were nothing but trouble. And the moment this will is read, they'll finally get what they deserve, nothing." Silence. Mr. Harrington waited for her to finish, expression unreadable. Then he opened the envelope. "Mrs. Caldwell. Daniel created a new will 1 week before his passing." The room shifted. Marjorie blinked. "What are you talking about?" "This document supersedes the previous one," he said calmly. "And according to this will, Ethan and Lila receive 90% of the estate." Marjorie's breath hitched. "You," he continued, "receive the family home, only if you treat the twins with kindness. Any violation voids your inheritance." Marjorie's jaw trembled. I never." Mr. Harrington raised a remote and pressed a button. A recording of Marjorie's hateful tirade from mere minutes earlier filled the room. Her own voice sealed her fate. And the twins realized their father had protected them, even after death. Marjorie shot to her feet, her chair slamming backward as the recording continued to echo through the conference room. Her own voice, sharp, venomous, filled the air. "You're nothing. You'll get nothing. Leave Los Angeles and never come back." Frozen on the screen was an image of her pointing at Ethan and Lila with hatred twisting her face. That recording was taken before I knew the condition," she stammered. Mr. Harrington adjusted his glasses calmly. "The timestamp says it was recorded 3 minutes after I read the condition aloud. The requirement was clear. You violated it immediately. That's not fair." Marjorie shouted. Daniel manipulated this. He must have been confused. He wasn't thinking straight. Daniel was of completely sound mind, the lawyer replied. I was with him when he signed the new will. He knew exactly what he was doing. Panic cracked across Marjorie's face. She looked at Ethan and Lila, reaching a trembling hand across the table. Please, listen to me, she pleaded. I didn't mean anything I said. I was grieving. I was emotional. You can't hold this against me. Lila flinched away from her touch. Ethan stared at her with a calm he didn't feel. You had 5 years to treat us with kindness, Ethan said quietly. You chose cruelty every single day. Marjorie's tearful mask slipped, replaced by raw fury. You think you've won? I'll challenge this. I'll get a lawyer. I'm his wife, I deserve something. You're welcome to try, Mr. Harrington said. But no attorney will take your case. The will is airtight, and the recording is devastating evidence. Silence fell. What do I get? Marjorie whispered, voice trembling. Only the personal belongings you brought into the marriage, he answered. Everything purchased with Daniel's money stays with the estate. Her earrings, her bracelet, her designer dress. All bought with Daniel's credit cards. She had nothing. You have 30 days to vacate the Carter home, Mr. Harrington said gently but firmly. Marjorie swallowed, rage, fear, disbelief mixing in her eyes. This isn't over, she hissed. She grabbed her purse, pushed open the door and disappeared down the hall. For the first time in years, the twins could breathe. After Marjorie stormed out of the conference room, silence settled like dust. Ethan and Lila sat frozen, trying to process the impossible. They hadn't lost everything, they had been protected. By the father they thought hadn't seen them. By the man they thought chose his wife over his children. Are you two all right? Mr. Harrington asked softly. Lila burst into tears. Not the same grief-heavy sobs from weeks earlier. These were confusing tears tangled with relief, shock, love, and the ache of everything they'd survived. Ethan pulled her close, his own eyes burning. Dad really did all of this for us? Ethan asked, voice barely above a whisper. He did, Mr. Harrington said. He came to me 3 weeks before he passed. He said he'd been blind for too long. He wanted to make things right. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out another envelope, this one white and sealed carefully. Your father wrote you a letter, he said. He asked me to give it to you after the will was read. Ethan's hands shook as he opened it. The familiar handwriting made Lila gasp. To my beloved children, Ethan read, voice cracking. The letter unfolded like a final embrace, an apology, a confession, and a promise of love that stretched beyond death. Daniel admitted he had failed them. He wrote how he discovered the truth about Marjorie, her texts, her cruelty, the way the twins tensed when she entered a room. He said he wished he had seen sooner. He told them they were strong, kind, worthy. That their mother Amelia would be proud. That he wanted them to build good lives and help others who felt unseen. By the time they reached the end, I love you more than my own life. Both twins were trembling. In that moment something shifted. The grief didn't disappear. But the anger loosened. The fear quieted. For the first time since losing their father, Ethan and Lila felt a direction, a purpose. And they knew. Their story wasn't ending. It was finally beginning. Within weeks, the Carter home transformed. After Marjorie packed her belongings and left the Santa Monica house for good, Ethan and Lila walked through each room as if seeing their lives with new eyes. The heavy tension that once clung to the walls had lifted. For the first time in 5 years, the house felt safe. They restored their father's office exactly as he left it. His mug on the coaster, his glasses folded neatly beside old business notes. It became their quiet sanctuary, a room of memories rather than fear. Meanwhile, they stripped the master bedroom of every trace of Marjorie, replacing her cold presence with warmth, books, sunlight, and framed photos of Amelia and Daniel. By summer, Ethan and Lila were deep into planning something bigger than themselves, a foundation in their mother's name. The Amelia Carter Foundation was born to help teens in abusive or unsafe homes, kids just like them. They poured their inheritance into building a team of counselors, opening emergency apartments, and creating a 24/7 hotline. At Northwestern University, where they later enrolled, their lives blossomed. Ethan excelled in business, Lila thrived in psychology. But despite the workloads, they returned to Los Angeles often, working at the foundation after classes and during breaks. Their efforts grew into something extraordinary. Hundreds of teens found refuge, guidance, or a second chance through the Carters' work. Years later, standing in their expanded downtown office, Ethan and Lila watched the open house crowd mingle. Donors, survivors, counselors, and young people whose lives were changed because two siblings decided their pain would not define them. "We did everything Dad asked of us," Lila whispered. "We built good lives," Ethan said. "And we helped others build theirs." That night, back home on the porch, they watched the sunset paint warm colors across the city. The same city where they once felt trapped now felt full of possibility. Their story could have been about revenge. Instead, it became a story of healing, justice, and unbreakable family. And as the porch lights flickered on, one truth settled over them. Their journey wasn't ending. It was just beginning.